Okay. Welcome to the tonight's meeting of November 6th of the County of San Diego Citizen Law Enforcement Review Board. We will start with the roll if the secretary can please call the roll. Here. Here. I'm not sure your microphone is on. I'm not sure your microphone is on. I have to share it. I know, it's so little. We're gonna have to share. Dr. Brown.
Here. Here.
Ms. Frederica Montagon. Here. Mr. Woody.
Here.
Mr. Thomas, you're gonna use that. Where?
Here.
And Mr. Woods.
Here.
Thank you. We have several new members. So quickly, before we go to public comment, I wanted to introduce them. We have Mr. Norman Vincent, who has a decade of experience in technological operations for medical equipment, computer systems, and telecommunications. And he brings extensive experience in project management and process development. He's recently retired, so now he's taken on this unpaid position of helping us out here on the CLERB. So thank you very much for joining us. We're glad to have you. Mr. Daniel Moody, who has more than 28 years of experience in law enforcement and public service. He served with the El Cajon Police Department, including hostage negotiations and internal affairs. He was also an intelligence officer in the Naval Reserves, including naval criminal investigations. And then he became a teacher for 9 years. And now he's working with us. So very nice to have you. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Thomas is not here, but he will be joining us. He has an extensive background in medicine and public health and clinical leadership. He began his career as a physician with the United States Public Health Service and then completed an internal medicine residency in West Virginia. He's practiced medicine for more than 3 decades in both Hillcrest and Southeast San Diego, and he specializes in nephrology. And I did have a chance to meet him online during our interviews, and we're going to be really glad to have his expertise as we gain medical oversight. And then Brad Woods. Mr. Woods is a former director of Chicago Television for their police department. He has expertise in budget administration, recruitment, and employee development and labor relations. He is a recognized instructor and counselor, and his work includes contributing to studies on officer wellness.
Okay.
He helped establish the Chicago Police Department's non-disciplinary intervention program to address unprofessional conduct. So welcome to our new members, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
We will now move to public comment. This is item number 3. And this is an opportunity for members of the public to address the CLERB board on any subject matter that is within the board's jurisdiction, but is not an item on today's open session agenda. And hopefully everyone who wants to speak has submitted their request to speak forms. And each speaker will have 2 minutes, and we'll start with the people that are here in public, and then we'll move to people online. So Norris, if you could call the first speaker, please.
Sandy Leo.
Hi, my name is Sandy Weddle. I'm with Saving Lives in Custody, California. I am the mother of Saxon Frederick Rodriguez. My son died on July 20th, 2021 in Central Jail of a drug overdose. Over the last 4 years, I've been trying to find out how the drugs that killed Saxon entered the jail undetected, who brought them inside. And I shouldn't have to file a wrongful death lawsuit to get truth, the evidence, answers, and justice in Saxon's case. Families who are grieving an in-custody death should not ever have to claw through red tape. Seems the sheriff is more worried about building a case against the dead than they are human decency. My son Saxon still had basic human rights of due process law and was entitled to basic human rights, and care. Like many of the in custody deaths, he died pre-trial. He never made it to court the next day, to go before a judge to prove his innocence. Saving Lives in Custody California has been asking for a sit-down meeting with Kelly Martinez for over a year now. Kelly can make time for coffee talk and photo ops with everyone but us grieving families. We want to know why. And we also want Kelly to hold staff accountable for the deaths of Paul Silva, Kevin Mills, Bonnie Rupert, Gilbert Gill, Omar Moreno Arroyo, Abdul Kamara, Jarrell Lacey, Matthew Settles, Raymond Vogelman, Brandon Yates, Hayden Shuck, Pedro Ornelius Jr., Eric Van Tyne, Corey Dean, Colin Lyons, Ziana Granillo, Linda Bagby, Keith Bach, James Pittman, Michael Wilson, Ronnie Sandoval, Rosalie Bartolacci, Patricia Adamson, Erica Wahlberg, Elisa Serna, my beloved son, Saxon Rodriguez. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley Turman.
Hello, my name is Ashley Turman, I'm Saving Lives in Custody. I'm also the daughter of Linda Bagby. She passed away in custody at Las Colinas Detention Facility on June 13th of this year. It's now been over 5 months and we're still without definite answers of what happened to my mom. Despite placing multiple calls to the watch commander, yet to this day, no response. When we did get a cranial autopsy, they are stating it was more, part of the cause was morbid obesity, but it was actually fluid retention from medication she was requesting. That was a diuretic that they apparently paid no mind to the medical staff insurance. I'm almost only 53 years old. Our first time ever being incarcerated. And like all the other grieving families, when you get that, you know, when families are struggling, you get that color in jail, you think it's a better place for them, right? It's a turning point. Place to clear their head, because clearly they're not able to do it. But my mother was also in rigor mortis for hours before, and then they left her on the floor of the jail. The deputy stated they found her in response of at 4:25. It was the inmates that found her and turned into the deputies. I didn't get the call to So these types of things, especially when people are advocating for themselves and letting the medical staff know what medication may help them with some diagnosis that they have, and they just disregard it. Doesn't really seem to fit what Kelly Martinez says as far as. Thank you.
Thank you. And before our next speaker comes to the podium, I just want to apologize for the knocking or tapping sound that you're hearing. There's construction going on, so I just wanted you to know what that was.
Ms. Turman, is it Turman?
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind at the end of closed session, please see Chief Deputy Lynn Sessler over there before you leave today, okay? At the end of open session.
Thank you.
Taylor Jones.
Hi, my name is Taylor Jones. I am sister of Calvin Lyons. This is my older Lisa. My sister Calvin died while in custody May 12th of this year at Las Colinas. She died approximately 36 hours after she was booked, and what has happened to us it has been one of the most horrifying things our family has ever experienced, and I thought, when this happened, no one's going to understand that we're going through what we're feeling. And I've now met a bunch of families behind me who know exactly what we're going through. We have been fighting this for 5 months, but these families have been doing it for years. We just want transparency, we want accountability, we want to just know what happened. She was only 31 years old, she has children, a lot of family behind them, and it's just difficult for us to process anything without knowing the answers. We've heard stories of what has happened, and we just want to know. We want transparency, we want accountability, we want to try to start this healing process, but it's just unfortunate that this has happened to us 5 months ago, and we still don't have answers, and all of these families don't have answers, and it has been years for them. We want to know what happened, we want accountability, we want transparency, and we're asking for your help in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa McCarty.
Lisa gave me her minutes. She wanted me to speak for her. And as you met her, she's fresh there. My name is Yusef Miller with North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. I'm so glad that so many different family members have come here to join us to speak to CLERB, and for our new members that they can hear it straight from the families and feel that anguish and the pain that they've been suffering since the loss of their loved one. When we talk about counting lines, and we talk about the time that she was in, very short period of time, that she was in there for 36 hours, and you could say, well, this is not our fault. This is not our fault. She was in there for 36 hours. But please understand, 36 hours is long enough for a porous system that allows drugs to enter their system and for a person to partake. Now, you may say also that, hey, we didn't make a person take drugs or use drugs or the other drugs. But once a person is in the custody of law enforcement, it is their responsibility to make sure that they do not have those things. So to make sure those things do not get in. So the access to those is the problem, not that the person took them. So I want to make sure that we're all clear-headed when we talk about issues such as this. And when it comes to Las Colinas, both women that you heard up here with Ms. Bagley and Ms. Lyons, both died this year in the same year, really close together. The Women's Detention Center is one of those detention centers that doesn't have back-to-back deaths. So it's kind of a barometer of all the deaths we have. We have 7 jails. This is the only female jail, and we have 2 back-to-back jails, which makes it a really suspicious, really suspect kind of issue going on in that jail that we need to take accountability for, and we need to dig deeper for some kind of transparency. These families need to know what is going on. How did their loved one die in 36 hours? What was done and not done? What protocols were put in place? Because we have protocols for people who come in that have addictions, and we need to make sure that all of those lines are followed. And if not, there needs to be accountability for it. Right?
Thank you. And before we go to the next speaker, because we've had 2 discussions of newer deaths in custody that have been part of a comment, I'm going to ask Mr. Kalina to explain about filing a case since the medical jurisdiction is new.
So under the new rules and regulations of CLERB starting now in November, we have authority, automatic jurisdiction to review medical records and medical personnel in regards to in custody deaths. However, we did not have that automatic jurisdiction within the last year. But our rules and regulations allow us to accept a complaint within 1 year, or for example, the families to file a complaint against medical staff, which would then allow CLERB to investigate those. Those would have had to have happened within the last year. So just explaining that, that's what I was talking about, making sure that you had a chance to meet with one of our investigators before you left today.
Thank you for that, Brett. So if anyone has questions, please talk through our CLERB investigative staff, and they'll help you with filing that complaint.
Yusuf Miller,
Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And the case of Keith Bach was so disheartening when we found out what the investigators have found and how they determined this case. I know it's not finalized, you have to go into closed session to actually deal with this and talk about this and discuss it. But as you go in, please think, just because it's more than one person does not absolve all of those people from neglecting our loved ones to death. Mr. Bach had an insulin monitor and it was ringing. He was complaining and begging for someone to help him get his insulin. The other inmates were also begging and calling and ringing the bell that this meter was going off and ringing. Nothing happened. Keith Bach dies. And what we read that they said, well, because there were multiple people over multiple shifts that were responsible, no one person is responsible, so therefore we don't feel that we can hold any one person accountable. Why not multiple persons? This is my question. Why not multiple persons? Why not multiple deputies and multiple doctors, multiple nurses? Why not? That person is gone, and Mr. Bach is never coming back. His family is still here, and they don't want to hear that nobody can be held responsible because the system is fouled. If the system is fouled up, fix the system. And at the same time, on the other end of that process, look out for the families, the residents of San Diego County, who, when their loved one goes to jail and they have their Title 15 rights, that they receive health care, medical health care, mental health care, food, clothing, and all those things are proper. This was a kind of case where everyone knows when there's a bell ringing anywhere, that means there's a problem. Even when my bell is about to ring here, there's a problem, I've gone over too long. But when the bell was ringing for this man, all of those shifts they denied. And that cost him his death, his life. So here I have a bell ringing, and that means that I've gone too long. Bells mean there's something wrong.
John Settle,
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is John Settles. I'm here with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in Custody, California. And these come together because of the pervasiveness of the deaths and in custody deaths that we've seen here in San Diego. It's unfortunate to be part of this group, but we feel as though enough headway is not being made, and when we'd like to see more headway being made. We're glad to see that there's medical the jurisdiction being conveyed to you as a board, but what we aren't seeing is transparency from the sheriffs. We feel as though Kelly Martinez is pushing back. There was an opportunity for an inspector general. She's pushing back on that. She doesn't want the sheriffs tested for drugs. There's a lot of issues we have on their side that there's not accountability. Like I say, my brother Matthew Settles passed 3 years ago. The sheriffs were in charge of his care. He was mentally ill. He was under a conservatorship. They did not have any idea that he was under a conservatorship, and they put him in solitary confinement and allowed him to refuse his medication. Of course, there was issues with what happened with him, and so many of the people, families that have experienced loss. We're counting on you to move forward with aggressively seeking accountability and transparency. And I'm just hoping that the more we show up here, the more you just really understand that we're relying on you. You are the system, and if the system can't hold them accountable, how do we respond as citizens of California, right? And I guess that's where we're at, and that's at least my piece. But it's obviously much deeper. And thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Brenda Settles,
I'm Brenda Settles, I'm mother of Matthew Settles, who passed away at George Bailey on August 16th, 2022. He was loved, and I know you've heard his story, some of you many times, but it's with me every single day. I feel for all the families here. And I'm with Saving Lives in Custody. He was on conservatorship for his mental health, and he should have had his medication in jail. After horrific head injuries in custody, where he had to have 54 stitches, when he came back from the hospital, they sent him without notifying his conservator or anyone to George Bailey in ADSEC, which the county was well aware was the worst place for someone with mental illness. He was there alone. We begged for information and told them that he was at risk and he needed help. Neglect in the jails is still tolerated to this day. We need accountability and real changes in the system. So many family members lose their loved ones needlessly. I also read in the paper today about Keith Potts, who died in custody. His wife brought him in for and begged for help for him. I mean, it's just terrible that these things are still going on. And the mental health system really needs to be brought up in the jail system, because it's 40% of people who need the help. And it's not acceptable as it is now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Deanna Serna.
Hello, my name is Deanna Serna. I'm a little sister of Elisa Serna, who died in Las Colinas on November 11th, 2019. That's my sister. So next week, it's gonna be about 6 years now that she has passed. I'm gonna be showing pictures of everyone else who's died in custody. Kelly Martinez, Kelly Martinez empty promises have nothing to fix horrific, unsafe conditions inside San Diego jails. Inmates suffer in filth, isolation, and mental illness is punished and not treated. She hides behind an excuse and PR spin. This is deliberate indifference. San Diego and the families deserve the truth, accountability, and independent oversight now. She likes to, when my sister died, it was Bill Gore who was sheriff, and she likes to say that she wasn't sheriff. She always makes it a point that she wasn't sheriff when my sister died, but she was in the chain of command. She was under Bill Gore. So why didn't she speak up when all these deaths were happening? And she said that when it came to the debate, she said that she was gonna change, lower the deaths in the jails, but it's been the same. We have added more families to our group. We have 11 deaths this year. Kelly Martinez needs to step down if she's not gonna do her job. Because all of our families, our loved ones' blood is on her and the sheriff department's hands. Thank you.
Paloma Serna.
My name is Paloma Serna. I'm the mother of Lisa Serna, who died November 11th, 2019 by medical neglect at the hands of Deputy Lacey Lovisa, who still works at Las Colinas. Tony Hall Bennett, Deputy Tony Hall Bennett, who was transferred to Pizza Jail, and Daniel Lee Pasquale and Frederic Valenti. I'm with Saving Lives in Custody, California, and North County Equity and Justice Coalition. This is a shame to read in the paper today that this board investigators found no one at fault. That is shameful that we come time and time again here. And for you guys to let your guys, investigators, find no one at fault. 6 years later, why are people still dying? It makes no sense. also this. You guys are supposed to be for us. You're supposed to be investigating the sheriff and finding fault. Cause this is how our justice system is, but they're innocent until they're proven guilty, but it's the opposite. You guys need to do the same thing, do the opposite. But I am ashamed that the investigator of this board have found no one at fault for Keith Bob's death. It is ruled as a homicide due to neglect. You're supposed to be the watchdog, not sustain every finding, every dismissal. Every excuse tells families that their loved one's life meant nothing. Nobody protected Keith Bob. No one protected Elisa Cernum. No one protected Saxon Rodriguez. No one protected Matthew Settle. No one protected Callan Line. No one protected Linda Bagby. Kelly Martinez keeps wasting money. Millions in payout. 15 minutes. 15 million. 60 million. What's next? 20?
Ms. Maluma. Jock Rodriguez.
Jock Rodriguez, I am Saxon Rodriguez's father. I've been coming here since May for the new members here. I've been trying to get my issues addressed with the sheriff's department, and they appear to be totally corrupt. I have worked at the border as a point of contact for security operations. In 3 years, we didn't have one death. The problem is accountability. The fraud, waste, and abuse from the sheriff's department is at a federal level. You guys need to get on it. I tried to do my citizen's arrest on October 13th and was denied. This is 2 months now. I want my citizen's arrest. I don't care who makes the arrangement for that meeting, and I don't know where the sheriff thinks you need to make an appointment for a felony arrest. On the 13th, I found out David Shoemover is a real person that signed for my certified. 4 years, my paperwork under U.S. Code 18, subsection 42 has been ignored. That paperwork has been missing for the audit here, the county audit, the state audit. I'm looking at the federal. Where's the FBI? I suggest this board cover itself, because what I'm finding might lead to some conspiracy here. And it may not be with these board members, it might be with the prior board. So please, make that arrangement somehow. I'm asking for my citizen's arrest, multiple felonies, obstruction, fraud, waste, and abuse, murder. Thank you.
David DeArmond.
Good evening. On January 20th, 2023, my son Christopher DeArmond was stopped by members of San Diego Police due to an inoperative third brake light. The officers escalated the situation. They threatened my son, and ultimately they put 28 bullets into my son's body, including the use of non-departmental issued hollow points. And then they held him down, let him bleed out, and denied medical care. Deadly force, non-department issued hollow points. These officers are sworn to protect and serve. San Diego Sheriff's Department also contributed by providing an inaccurate report and a post-incident interview, which was illegitimate itself. You see, the morning following the murder of my son, I arrived on the scene. A man in a suit approached me, identifying himself Sheriff's Department deputy investigating. the action in San Diego. He told me that San Diego Police Department officers had used a police canine to extract my son from the truck he was driving. This was a lie, as he exited under his own accord. He continued to question me. Only at the end of the interrogation did he inform me of my son's death. All the while he wore a hidden microphone. Furthermore, the post-incident interview between the officers and the sheriff's department conducted hours after the incident with attorneys present, open-ended leading questions presented, attorneys coaching the answers. I must ask, by having one law enforcement agency investigate another, what could possibly prevent collusion, bias, bona fide conflict of interest? To top things off, the sheriff's investigation of my son was incomplete, with numerous errors found within. I am a 30-year naval veteran, a graduate of FLETC. I used to be a staunch believer in law enforcement. I no longer am.
Patricia DeArmond.
Hello, my name is Patricia DeArmond. I'm the sister of Christopher DeArmond. You heard the story. I mean, excessive force. Canines as a test for deployment. Detectives. Detective Blumenstein and Davidson conducted voluntary interviews with agreed upon questions hours after the incident occurred. No objectivity in their questions. Attorneys present in the room with questions tailored to the San Diego sheriffs, so most of it didn't apply to the police. Officer Aguilar was allowed to go off record during his interview in the beginning. Every officer was dishonest about the number of bullets shot at Chris. No objectivity in the detective's questions. Officers were allowed to make misleading statements about what happened. Detective Roberts, badge number 0322 from Valley Center, and Detective Garza, badge number 2865, were called the following morning to review footage. Why were they called from Valley Center? To review footage? What do they need to review? And why so far away? Didn't they have anybody in San Diego? San Marcos and Valley Center were called. Those detectives were called the next morning. The scene was held up for 14 hours while the investigation continued. This is a cover by the San Diego sheriffs for the SCPD shooting, and no one was held accountable. San Diego sheriffs need to be held accountable for doing such a terrible quality investigation. If we had murdered somebody or shot somebody with hollow points, we would be interrogated for hours on end. We would be charged with 25 to life for murder. And yet they all walk scot-free, back to duty. Christopher Aguilar is still patrolling the same area that he killed at.
Thank you. Dave Settles.
As CLERB, I'm also the brother of Matthew Settles, who passed away at George Bailey, August 14th of 2022. He was the 18th person that year. I'm here representing my brother, also all the other families that continue to, not be protected in the jails. I'm here representing Stabilizing Custody as well as North County Equity and Justice Coalition. So I just want to point out, I've talked about Matt, my family's talked about Matt, a couple points about him. He was a long time schizophrenic, I've mentioned that. A couple of the failings I just want to call out. Matthew was in and out of the county mental hospital here in San Diego. He was literally taken from the county medical hospital here into jail. And he was part of the general population at downtown Central, they have a psych unit. He had been there previously, but he was not put there. And you know, I've been here, seen the sheriff's department kind of talk about their screening process and how they have a robust process to evaluate the needs of mental health to protect, you know, the inmates. And, you know, Matthew wasn't protected. He was immediately assaulted. And, you know, makes matter worse, he was without, you know, without our family knowing all, you know, he was later transferred to George Bailey, where they have zero psych unit, and he was put into segregation, which is specifically what reports have said should not be done with people in that condition, that severe mental illness. He was hallucinating. So thank you, clerk, and please provide oversight for the sheriffs and medical staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Ilka? Sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Ilka Weston. I am the founder of Transparency and Accountability for probation to protect our adults and our children. I want to bring up a very important case right now that took place in Lemon Grove and the atrocities that we're dealing with. But thank God for CLERB, because CLERB is looking into it. Irma Espinosa was hanging out on the walkway. Didn't know why, recently homeless, not a big deal. And suddenly, somebody hears cries and screams and calls the sheriff's department. They sent out a sheriff deputy on July 29th at around 9 a.m. And the lady did not get out of the car, did not roll down the window, or she would have seen a woman submerged in the water and her head outside of the water. And she would have noticed the woman had no pants, no underwear, and bruises all over her body. She didn't turn to drugs or alcohol. She was minding her own business. Now, whoever did this to her before, it's kind of shocking they haven't bothered to investigate. And it goes further. The sheriff deputy in question called the witness, who has spoken often, and threatened him, and said very clearly, if he calls again, she'll come to his house. So then we speed up to Friday, and that was the first, I believe it was the 1st of August. They had to pull her out of the water. She was laid down. They didn't grab the underwear. They didn't grab the pants. They didn't get a test of the water. They didn't do anything. A supervisor had to come back later. Now, the only one bothering to investigate this right now is our wonderful CLERB investigators, and I thank you for that. Because sheriff deputies have not even called the family or the witness. And this happened in the summer. Thank you very much. Oh, this is fine, it's fine.
That concludes the request to speak in person. If you allow us, we can start calling the online. First, we will call Leslie Crawford. Leslie, can you hear me? I'm asking you to unmute. But we will come back to her. Next, we will call Sandy Weddle.
Hello.
Yes, Sandy, we can hear you fine.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Weddle. I am Saxon Rodriguez's older sister. Saxon Rodriguez died in San Diego Central Jail, July 20th, 2021. This message is for Kelly. I know that you're hiding face per usual. Just like you hid behind all of the lies when it came to your election. You have continued to show that you are a horrible woman in charge, the deaths are continuing to show on your hand. And I've been at these meetings for the last 4 years, and I have stated that the new families are going to continue to show up. These new families are going to continue to fight for their answers, and we're going to continue to fight for what's right. Hence as to why we got oversight over medical. I mean, even though we can't get any answers from Saxon's death, we're going to continue to lead other families to get these answers. And I'm not there today because I picked my son over you. But again, I'm going to let you know that you suck. Kelly Martinez, you're hiding behind doors like you always do. You're going to come out, show your face for 3 minutes, and then run out of the building. Just like the people that represent you every meeting. They run out every meeting. Nobody cares. Pintar, thank you for fighting for oversight of medical, stating that we are there at every meeting. I appreciate that. But Kelly Martinez, this one's for you. You suck. Thank you. May Saxon Rodriguez rest in peace.
Thank you. Next we'll call Beverly.
Yes, I'm Beverly Allen Jerry, suffering the loss of Viana Granillo, 2022. I'd like to give my minutes to Yusuf Miller.
Yusuf Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And Vanessa Bernal is another loss that we had in Las Colinas, another female that's very, very similar to Elisa Serna, the mother Elisa Serna, Paloma Serna, and sister Deanna Serna, who are here today. These are unnecessary losses that we've experienced and we come together for. Miss Beverly couldn't even speak because the trauma is still eating her up alive, that she's missing this woman. And she's taking care of the child left over who's lost their mother. When we looked at what's going on with Beverly, when we look at what was going on with the person who lost their life, Vanessa Granillo, Viviana Granillo, we see the same pattern going over and over again. This is why we're so happy that we have this oversight on medical personnel. With medical personnel now being included under the CLERB jurisdiction, we can look a little deeper. We have to look a little deeper when it comes to Saxon Rodriguez, and we're going to put that in. And we have to look a little deeper when it comes to Kevin Mills. We feel confident to put that in. And the person who lost his life the same month of the approval of that, we need to test the system of this medical oversight to see how far does it go. What do we include in that? And push and pull on how far we can go back with this. So we're going to make some test cases. We're going to help the families that are here, that you explained that they need to put in a medical complaint. We're going to help them fill out those medical complaints and get them to you and then see what happens. We know we have the ordinance change. We know it's out there, but let's see what happens. So we're here for all of those families to include Viana Bernal and all the families that has not received justice yet, to include that piece that we might be missing from that.
Thank you. Next, we will call Leslie. Leslie, can you hear us? I'm asking you to unmute. All right, so looks like there is some difficulties at Leslie's end. And we have received also a request to speak via Zoom from Tom Packard. However, I don't see his name. So Tom, if you have joined Zoom with different name, please have your hands up to be able to call you.
Sorry, Nurse, are you saying that he has submitted a request to be put online?
Correct. And I believe someone already raised their hand. So can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I'm Tom Packard with Showing Up for Racial Justice North County. At your August meeting, sheriff staff were asked to share information about their continuous quality improvement process and agreed to do so. As far as I know, there has not yet been a report on this. Please get that information and also ask the sheriff or staff these questions regarding the recent grand jury report and sheriff responses. What are all the significant improvements in the internal and external accountability review processes mentioned in their response? Insist that she share the quality assurance, quality improvement committee reviews and metrics and data based on the clinical performance enhancement section of MSD policy S3 and section A61. Your staff findings that no sheriff staff had any responsibility in the homicide death of Keith Bach clearly shows the inadequateness of your processes or your decision-making. A thorough QA/QI review would have highlighted multiple causal factors for which systemic change would be needed. Your staff policy recommendations will not be enough. While I appreciate much of what the sheriff plans to do, given her record on transparency and accountability, you can't expect that the community will believe everything she says without documentation. Please insist that the sheriff fully shares detailed documentation of all changes that will reduce preventable deaths at her proposed public-facing webpage, and ask sheriff staff to provide written updates on progress at each of your meetings. Thanks for your attention.
We can try Leslie Crawford one more time and then we're gonna move on.
Leslie, I'm trying to ask you to unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 4. There are no other speakers waiting to.
And yet, correct, that concludes our request to speak for item number 3.
Thank you. That concludes our public testimony. Thank you for everybody who spoke. Appreciate it. We will now move on to item number 4, which is minutes from the October 2nd meeting. If there is a board member who would like to offer a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mendelson. Delphine, please call the roll.
Chair Pintar,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mendelson.
Yes.
Secretary Connor, yes. Dr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bisson. Yes. Mr. Federico Montaglione. Yes. You is absent. Mr. Moody.
Abstain.
Mr. Thomas is absent. Mr. Ware.
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
Abstain.
Okay, let the record know that the minutes have passed by a vote of 7 in favor. No opposed.
Thank you. We will now move on to item number. She's not yet. There you go. I was gonna say, you need to wait for the sheriff to arrive. You are here. I'm sorry. We do have one more item before we move to the sheriff's presentation. We're going a little bit out of order tonight. We're going to have our probation liaison, Officer Ana Diaz-Pena. I believe you had something to present to us, and we're gonna let you do that before we move to the sheriff's presentation. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, I was asked to present our institution numbers. So that's what I'm gonna be introducing right now, so.
You mean population?
Correct.
Thank you.
So facility capacity. So the numbers are for East Mesa, the capacity is 260. For YTC, we have 2. One's for commitment, which is 96. Detention is 72. However, for the population for today, at East Mesa, we're at 103. YTC commitment, we're at 92. YTC detention, we're at 42.
Okay. Do you have a question? Do any of the board members have a question regarding the capacity numbers and the population numbers and the probation facilities? And For the record, for those who aren't familiar with it, YTC is referring to the Youth Transition Center. Okay. Are there any questions for probation liaison today?
Yes.
Ariane, sorry, go ahead.
Are we able to get a breakdown, like, race and ethnicity?
Race and ethnicity? I can request for that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, go ahead, Mr.
Would it be possible to include the ratios of, how many people are there versus how many are supposed to be there? That would be easier to digest, I think, for at least me, I'm hoping that's.
Maybe, you ask question, the ratio on.
From the ratios, if there's,
Mr. Bissing, thank you.
if there's like 100 beds and 100 of them are filled, that's 100% ratio.
Correct.
If 90% are filled, that's 90 people out of 100 available beds. So if you have more than that are available, it would be easier to, for me to understand personally. If we have ratios.
Okay. I'll request that. I'll send it before, then I'll present it next month.
I appreciate it. So he's asking, and I was a little bit confused too about capacity versus the number of people in each of those institutions. So you could bring it back as a ratio next time. Would you bring us any race and ethnicity data that you can bring to us? That would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
thank you. Anything else for Ms. Diaz-Kenya? Okay, thank you. We will move on to item number 5, the sheriff. Sheriff Martinez, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. I believe you have a presentation for us.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Pintar and members of the board. Happy to be here tonight. And after my presentation, I welcome any questions or anything you'd like to know. I know that we have some new members of the board, and just sort of a reminder for folks. I want to do a little bit of an overview of our jail system. We have 7 jails in our system. We'll go to the first slide. Second slide. Thank you. We hold about 4,300 people in our custody every day right now. We've got 50 to 60,000 are booked into the facilities throughout the year, and then we take arrestees from every jurisdiction in the county, and our jails are also the largest provider of mental health care in the county. The sheriff's office, we've done some hiring and improvements in the last couple of years towards our medical. We've employed, we have 282 nurses, which are 74 more since last July that we've hired. We have 133 deputies that are new to our detention facility and our staff. And then we are expanding our range of services. We created a CNA position, a certified nursing assistant position, because we were struggling to hire enough RNs and LDNs. So we've got this position, which is sort of a stepping stone up into those other positions that we continue to train. We've developed 3 and filled 3 director of nursing positions, with each director supervising multiple facilities. That helps us with our supervision and auditing controls. As far as our information sharing in our systems, hospitals are now required to provide clearance forms of individuals that are being transferred. So sometimes we'll do a medical reject of someone at the gate because we don't feel that we have the medical capacity to treat that individual until they've been cleared from a local hospital. But we didn't really have a standard for the hospitals to understand what we needed them to actually check and clear the individual for. So that's what this form ensures. And then we've implemented Tech Care, which is an electronic health monitoring system. It integrates patient history, medication management, and care plans into a single platform. Providers can access the comprehensive records quickly, and it ensures more accurate diagnoses and personalized treatment. And as far as our service delivery with our medical improvements, we launched a continuous glucose monitoring pilot in partnership with Dexcom. It provides state-of-the-art care for diabetic patients. We've instituted emergency room trained doctors directly at intake, and those are at our 3 intake facilities, and they're under the Correctional Health Partners contract. So these are emergency level doctors that can assess people as they come into our facilities. We've instituted facility wellness checks, which is a multidisciplinary team. They meet with individuals in their actual housing unit rather than being dependent upon sick call, for us to understand whether they're eating, whether they're taking their medications, what their housing unit looks like as far as cleanliness, make sure they're showered and doing all of the other things they need to do for self-care. We've done a lot with the substance use disorder treatment. We've got a much more medication assisted treatment or MAT program in our jails. When I first started this as sheriff, we only had, I think, 3 people under this treatment, and they were pregnant females. Now at this point, we have 378 who are currently receiving complete MAT services. That means the wraparound services with counseling and all the rest of the treatment. We have 473 who are just receiving the medication support, and we have 120 been referred to community-based programs for continuity upon release from jail. Some of the mental health improvements that we've made, we've improved the response and treatment to avoid cases where someone might choose to take their own life. So some of our suicide prevention has become more robust. Our focus has been on preventing suicides from occurring, and we haven't had one in over 2 years. At this point, we're not taking a victory lap by any means, but we're very proud of our record, and we are catching people sooner through a number of different treatments. We've implemented the early access to stabilization services, which allows mental health care to begin sooner with our at-risk populations, and we better monitor an individual's court activity. We pay a lot more attention to what happens in court because we know the court process is stressful. Sometimes they get bad news while they're in court and they come back into our custody, and we're going to have to pay special attention to those individuals. Since July 1, 2024, we've had 4 licensed mental health clinicians hired. We employed 10 mental health case managers, which is a new position since 2023. Last year, we've had 68,566 psychiatric encounters, and wait times for psychiatry and mental health clinician visits have been reduced. The use of telepsychiatry has helped in this area and allows better access to psychiatric services. The jail-based competency treatment program is an intensive programming and therapeutic care to restore individuals to competency. We oftentimes will have people who are not competent to stand trial, and they can be in our system for upwards of 2 years while we're trying to return them to competency so that they can continue the court process. To some of our security improvements, we've done a lot by way of interdicting drugs and weapons and other contraband coming into our facilities. We started a program right at intake with a better trained, more highly trained deputies who do the screening there. We do a lot more with our mail screening and mail processing to prevent drugs coming in there. We also, so there's a chart there that tells you how many drugs. You can see that we've decreased the numbers of drugs that we're interdicting because I think we're doing a much better job of capturing it right at intake.
Sharon, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Are you able to move the mic a little bit closer to you?
No, it's unfortunately fixed to the table.
Well, actually,
I'll try to do it closer.
what you just did helped, just moving it down a little bit more. I can hear you better now.
Okay, sure. There's been an overall increase of 38% of drugs found in secondary screening. So what we're doing is we'll have the first screening right at intake with our CNAT deputies, and then if we have some suspicion that they have drugs or narcotics on their person in some manner, we will move them into a secondary screening. So in 2025, January to September, we've seen a decrease in overall drug seizures, as I said, and an increase in seizures of other miscellaneous contraband. Some of the other security improvements is we've got 7 canine handlers with 2 more coming into the Canine Academy. And these canines are trained for drug and narcotic interdiction primarily, and they are 24/7 and respond to the facilities. If we have an incident in the middle of the night, they'll come out and we utilize them for searches. We also have some searches. We implemented some random staff searches with canines and x-rays. Unfortunately, we can't do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at all of our facilities for everyone coming into our jail. I'd really like to do that, but it's gonna take about 80 more staff positions to be able to implement that full time. So right now we're doing it in a randomized fashion, which isn't advertised. People just come to work that day and find out that they're going to be screened. We have a visit and perimeter enforcement detail, which is our new BPED program that just started. It's been implemented in its permanent unit at the Mesa Complex, the Bailey, the East Mesa, Rock Mountain, and CPC. And what that does is screens all visitors and provides perimeter security for the entire complex, which enhances the safety of all staff. And we've been finding significant amounts of drugs and weapons during those screenings. Some of the technology improvements include the Tech 84s. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, one more. Yeah, so the Tech 84 body scanners, improvement over the body scanners we had before. They're at our intake area in all of our booking facilities, and they're operated by our specially trained contraband and narcotics teams. Wi-Fi in the facilities, we did a $16 million upgrade in recent years, and this has enabled medical staff to access tech care, and it improves our customer service. Body-worn cameras have been instituted in all of the facilities now. We've had that for some time, which has really improved our ability to understand what's happening. Metal detectors and X-ray machines for the employee random screening, as I said, is occurring. And then this slide is depicting some of our re-entry work. So we've got a strong focus on rehabilitation for people who are in our custody. If they are willing and interested, we have about 43 different programs that includes job training, everything from partnering with the Restaurant Association for culinary arts to landscape design, industrial cleaning. People, if they want to, can get trained and get a job upon release. We do job fairs in the facility. We pay for first 3 months of housing for some of our candidates to get jobs. We have a focus on education. They can get their high school diploma, they can get a college degree while they're in our custody. We've partnered with the recorder, assessor, and clerk to get them identification. They can get a birth certificate. We have a program that's unique to San Diego County. It's passed through legislation, and it's a partnership with the DMV to get people California ID cards so that when they get out of custody, they have a better opportunity to succeed. Continuing with our reentry works program, we have technical education, and these are some of the programs. We have, like I said, some of our culinary arts which focus on bakery and a number of other things. We have a bicycle program where we bring in bicycles oftentimes from our property in evidence, ones that aren't claimed, and they will recycle those bikes, and we give them out at to many of our youth in our communities. We have a commercial laundry program, construction trades. We recently partnered with the Lady Iron Workers as well as the Carpenters Union, and we are building out a carpentry program at our East Mesa facility. Culinary Arts, as I said, is a partnership with the Restaurant Association and Grossmont College. They can get their food handler certification. We also have a healthcare services assistant training, industrial sewing, landscape horticulture, screen printing, and other over 20 psychosocial training programs as well as educational programs. So on to some of our challenges have been much more public in talking about our infrastructure. That's because it took us a while to comprehend exactly what our needs are. We've had a 2-year consultation with an outside firm. They've finished all of their work, and we will be presenting to the Board of Supervisors December 9th. But we have an aging infrastructure. A lot of our facilities are reaching end of life, including Vista, which is the one that's the highest risk. It's about 50 years old. It needs to be completely torn down and rebuilt. These facilities were not built to accommodate the population we have today. They were built, as I said, Vista was 50 years ago, which was a much more punitive model for housing individuals than what we expect and what our societal norm is today. So we really need to fix these facilities so that we can better house people. There are increased vulnerable populations, and this is due to increased substance use disorder, homelessness, people who haven't seen doctors in a long time, just a whole host of issues that we as a jail are trying to that are built with therapeutic spaces and some of the other managed healthcare that we need. I wanted to touch a little bit lightly on Proposition 36 because that is impacting our jails. Proposition 36, as you know, increased some crimes to felonies, some theft and drug crimes primarily. Since the passage of Prop 36, December 18th, implementation of that bill, we've increased our daily population by about 500 people per day. I think today was 504. We've got over 3,344 bookings, I think, as of today. It's really strained our operations. This cost us about $32 million this year alone. We're strongly advocating for funding for Prop 36. The Board of Supervisors, as you may have seen this week, unanimously passed some assistance for us to go to the legislature in the next year. We've been working with Senator Blake Spear. She's been a great champion in understanding this bill and some of our other community members. If this growth continues, though, we'll need additional staffing across all classifications. We'll need to be able to maintain our safety and service delivery and administer the programs. We believe that this is an opportunity to expand our rehabilitation and our drug treatment programs in the jail. This is a population that more acutely has these needs than any other. Some of the capital improvements and facility maintenance present additional pressures which aren't currently in our cost estimates. And as court sentencing activity increases, there'll be added demands for court security and transportation, which is also under my, this is Sheriff. Some of the advocacy, as I said, we've been at state level. I've advocated with the governor's office as well as some of our legislature on budgeting. And as I said, the board of supervisors has supported more advocacy as in partnership with the sheriff's office, the DA, public defender, and probation, as well as behavioral health in the county. That's kind of it for my presentation. I know that there'll be a lot of questions, so I don't want to take too much time. But that's sort of a brief overview of some of the key points related to the jails right now.
Thank you, Sheriff. We're going to go to board questions, and I wanted to remind members of the public, if you intend to make a public comment, which we have for this item, please turn your speaker slips now while we go to board questions. So it will help me decide how I can manage our time for public comment today. So please get those speaker slips into NARS while the board is asking their questions, if you haven't done so already. We're going to go to board and executive officer questions. I think, Brett, did you have an announcement or a question first?
I don't have a question, Sheriff Martinez, but I think since we have a lot of new board members and a lot of community members that may not understand what Proposition 36 is and why that is increased violation, if you could just explain that for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Proposition 36 was passed by the voters last year in November. It's by 70% of the voters. It was a way, I think, for particularly retailers and other people who are experiencing a lot of theft and stuff, basically reporting theft crimes because they were nobody was being held accountable. So what it does is if you have 2 convictions of certain theft crimes, you're third offense or it becomes a felony. And every felony is bookable in the county jail. So before these theft crimes and also drug crimes, certain drug crimes, you need 2 prior convictions, the third one becomes a felony. For these crime types in particular, they're now bookable in county jail before it's a citation and release in the field. So every agency in the region is booking on these offenses, which is increasing our population. The other part to Prop 38, and this is available on our website if you want to look at the demographics and the charges and how long people are staying in custody and that type of thing. People are staying in custody longer. The average is 26 days, I think, is the median for Prop 36 crimes. So 3,300 people are booked. A lot of them released, but the ones who are there are staying for longer periods of time, have higher medical and mental health care needs than some of our other population. We're making on average at least 10 more hospital runs per day, which is a drain on staff because these individuals need more attention in hospitals. We can't always keep them. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We're going to now move to board questions. I'm nothing to board. Questions. Mr. Ware? Starting Mr. Ware. Anyone else after Mr. Ware? Okay, great. We'll go Mr. Ware, Mr. Mendelson, and then Mr. Besson. Thank you.
Sheriff Martinez, thank you first of all for the presentation. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate the information because I firsthand, I know there's a lot of great work that's been done in your agency, but we also have a major issue that we need to address. I have 3 questions for you. The first question in your presentation, you mentioned that you are the largest provider of mental health care in the county. And my question is, sometimes you mentioned that individuals come to you and you can't serve them and you have to refer them to another agency. Can you explain what would constitute a person in their condition that you have to send them away from your facility being the largest healthcare provider in our county?
Yeah, so what happens a lot of times when people are booked into custody, they just come from a traumatic event, right? So they might have perhaps a targeted pursuit, and so they might have some head injury or things like that. The arresting officer, it's the responsibility of the arresting officer to get clearance from a hospital so that I can I can safely take them into my custody knowing that the medical care that I have in the facility will be able to take care of an individual. Sometimes they are booked directly into a hospital. We had a case here recently. Public health, had an individual who was a public health judge. She had active tuberculosis and was walking in the community to reasonably get treatment. They have the ability to get an arrest warrant, put in place for that individual. She was brought to our custody, but she had a lot of other, health, issues beyond the tuberculosis. We can actually house people safely in our custody because we have a lot of infectious disease controls built into our system. But we couldn't treat some of the other, health issues she had. So we actually had to send her to the hospital where she is being held in custody now under deputy security, but she's being treated in the hospital. So individuals like that sometimes we can't treat, or if they have cancer, terminal illness, things like that. Mental health, sometimes if we can't restore them to custody, their criminal charges are dropped and then they become a civil. That I can't hold people in my custody for civil cases, it's only a criminal case. So then we have to work with our county partners to find inappropriate housing for them in the community. The problem sometimes with these individuals are they pose a serious danger to people. They committed a murder, they're not stable, they have severe mental illness and they're not accepting treatment or something like that. So there's a whole range of different reasons. We do have the capability to take care of most individuals, but sometimes we do reject people.
All right, thank you. So my second question of three is, you mentioned that you've had last year over 68,000 mental health encounters for last year. Question is, can you explain what exactly is a mental health encounter? And how does that figure compare to previous years?
I don't have the figure for previous years, but I'll get that for you. A mental health encounter is any time with a psychiatrist or counselor visits with an individual. It could be a telepsychiatry visit, it can be, they're on regular routine check-in with a psychiatrist. They ask to see a psychiatrist or a deputy or other medical staff that recommended a psychiatrist checking with them. Sometimes it can be that they just have those bad day in court and you want them evaluating for their mental health and where they're at. So each one of those counts as an encounter. We keep track of that in the charts, and that's the number that the after.
Okay, last question for me. I was in your presentation, you mentioned your challenges. And one of the things you had under your challenges was the aging infrastructure or your facilities. And I was surprised, and I'm assuming that you believe and understand that we all believe that in custody deaths should have been on that list up there. That's a challenge. All right, so I'm assuming you understand that piece, that was the foregone conclusion that you didn't need to put on the list.
No, absolutely. That's what we've been working very hard in the last 3 years since I've been sheriff to overcome. We right now are going through an audit, well, we'll get an audit process for National Correctional Healthcare, to understand where we can, one of the pushes I've been saying is that we need to proactively look at our system and understand what we're missing and what we're lacking and what we need to get. And so that's part of what the NCC HD auditing and accreditation process will be. We recently granted a contract for a company to do that work for me, and now starting in December. We've been doing a lot of internal review. We've been going, seeing what everybody else is doing, best practices. We've got a lot of oversight that's been looking at what we're doing, but I really wanted to look at our metrics and what we're doing and what we're missing. Our staffing, we need more nurses, we need more doctors, I know that we need a chief psychiatric officer over all the mental health care needs. Right now, we have a medical doctor that's working on that, but yeah, absolutely, back to your point, in custody death to
All right, your deputies have been doing a great job listening and representing the organization and coming to us. But make no mistake, I know you know this, there's nothing like having the leader here. That's true leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Mr. Mendelson.
Thank you, Sheriff Martinez. I appreciate you taking questions from the board here. And I've got a few. I'll try to keep them where they're simple answers and don't require a lot of answering. But the first one is, Are you satisfied that the Detention Services Bureau's classification systems procedures optimally ensure that violent, dangerous felons, mentally ill inmates, gang members, and sexual offenders are adequately classified and housed to ensure their safety?
Thank you for that question. We have been reviewing our classification procedures, specifically in the last 2 years. We had a lot of concerns about, housing people together. Part of that problem back to the infrastructure. I don't have enough housing for people. Bed's not a bed. I might have 2 or 3 beds in a cell, but I can't house some individuals with other individuals. And so we're constantly trying to figure out where we put people, because almost everyone has some special classification or some issue or concern. So I understand your question, and I think there are some improvements we can make to our classification system, because that's been going on forever, right? We've been doing it the same way for a long time. But the bigger problem for me is having enough housing to house people in safer environments.
Thank you. You answered my follow-on question, which was going to be whether you acknowledge there's room for improvement. Next area I want to talk about, the question I was going to ask you was what work is done to keep drugs from being introduced in the jail? And you gave us a chart of how many you seized. Now, I'm not sure that guarantees us that's how many that are coming in. Maybe they're getting more sophisticated or whatever. But are you satisfied that you're doing everything you can to keep drugs from being introduced into the jail, short of, I think you said you needed more money?
So one of the things we're finding, which is an indicator that there's fewer drugs in the jail, is that the market for Suboxone is increased in our facilities, and the gang members are actively leveraging people who are on our medicated assisted treatment program to cheat or keep their Suboxone so that it can be sold on the market, because that's the only drug a lot of people are able to get, is the drugs that were prescribed for MAP program. So that tells me we're doing a lot to reduce the drugs that are coming into our jail. Are we ever gonna get all of them? I don't know. It's a population that's highly addicted and highly motivated for drugs in. They go for a lot of money. A fentanyl pill on the street is about 60 cents, and the jail is $500. So, like I said, it's highly profitable. Some people in our custody are in custody for drug trafficking and other crimes that are related to smuggling drugs, and frankly, we're doing our best to stay in front of it. That is the job.
Thank you. And you're taking that and lumping that together with the previous question about classification. I'm sure that you're doing a lot of good work along those lines, but recognize that our board here, the cases that we hear are really bad, and they stem from issues with that. What you just said a minute ago, you admitted that more money would help you. And I'm interested in what the main area of concern was 2 years ago that resulted in all the sheriffs wearing a patch that says San Diego County Sheriff's Office instead of San Diego County Sheriff's Department. I understand that may be the symbolic fact that you're independently elected. However, I note with interest that in Orange County, there's a sheriff's department, and that sheriff is also independently elected. So that leads into the question of what's the total cost of signs, letterheads, patches, and everything, uniform changes? What was that total cost, and where'd that money come from?
So to clarify, we didn't have to change the patch. We haven't had to change any decals on our patrol cars that didn't say department. We kept the letterhead until it's been exhausted, and then replaced it as it's exhausted. The signage is being replaced as we're doing upgrades around our buildings, so we're doing everything we can to minimize costs in this area. I don't have the total cost for the things that we changed. It's primarily badges, and not everyone is replacing their badge. So I think the cost is not exorbitant, but we can get that number for you.
That's fine. I have another question that's kind of detailed, so I know you won't have this information, but I'm gonna ask if I can give it to your sheriff's liaison, because this is something I think we would be interested in. And that is how many, and we're just talking numbers, not names, of sheriff office personnel, deputies, detention services staff have been the subject of disciplinary and or certification actions in the last 2 years. I'll give that, I know you're not, be amazed if you can even touch that right now off the top of your head, but we'd be interested in things like how many admonishments, suspensions, terminations, conditional and revoked certifications, criminal charges, and the inability to impose discipline because of the personnel who's resigned or retired.
So I don't know if you're aware, thank you, and we will get you the numbers we can. One thing to note is that we continue the internal affairs investigation even if they do resign. And we do submit their decertification if it falls under the guidelines of state law. So that's it. And that's really meant so that someone can't get a job somewhere else, right? So, we are following all of those rules and those laws, and we do complete the investigation, whether they've resigned or left or, whatever else is going on.
Good to know. My last question I'll ask is just with the upcoming implementation of AB 847, expanding the oversight of law enforcement, and I know you're very well familiar with it, and I think everybody here is. Do you trust CLERB to comply with the measure's strict confidentiality procedures?
I don't know why I wouldn't.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendelson. We're gonna go to Mr. Bisson and then Dr. Brown and then Ms. Fasano.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Sheriff Martinez.
Sure.
I have a question regarding the tech care technology that you said has been implemented. I'm wondering, when was it implemented? And I'd also like to have a little bit more info about how it works, what it does. It seems like it would be a good transparent way to see what's going on with a lot of folks who come in with issues that need to be really addressed while they're in custody.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, and I'll have to have one of my experts come and explain more about, if you need some technical information about it. TechCare is proprietary to NAVCare, which is our healthcare provider. They're on their second generation of it, I believe, but we've had it in our jails, I have to think about a year. But I don't know if this is what you're referring to. We don't get community healthcare information from community care clinics or hospitals. We don't have a computer system that's compatible there. TechCare is specific to our jail system and people who are in our jails. So having the medical provider, the EM doctor, the ED doctors write an intake has been helpful in getting community healthcare information because they can all hospital get the information that we're not able to get through the computer system.
Okay. Also, you said that you had a system called XCOM. It's in a pilot program. How long has that been going on, and have you seen any results yet from that pilot?
Yes, my understanding is Dexcom is actually the company that does the monitoring for us, the glucose monitoring. I don't know how long we've had it. It hasn't been very long, and I don't have any data on what we found, but we did that.
Thank you, that's all.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brown and then Ms. Fasano and then Mr. Woods.
Good evening, Sheriff. Thank you for coming. Good evening. Sheriff, your job and the job of your people who work with you is very difficult. We know that not all the people are making mistakes that are causing the problems that we hear about here. Just a few of them. I'm hoping just a few of them. At least I know just a few of them because I know the men and women who work very hard, and it's a very difficult job. My question to you involves their health and well-being. Do you see a rise? And if you can't answer this, please don't. I mean, just and we can maybe get some kind of get it another way. But in terms of the health and well-being of your officers and the work stuff they say they have to deal with on a daily basis, you're saying that now you're the largest provider of mental health. Have you done any research or had anyone come in and done any research on the impact that's happening on the wellness and well-being of the officers who provide the service to the people of San Diego County?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is impacting our staff, the things that they see, particularly in the jails, and in the community. And we're doing a lot of work surrounding that. Since I've been the sheriff, we started a wellness program, which is becoming more robust all the time. I think we can do more. One of the biggest strains is trying to childcare and family and things like that. The hours that the deputies work and the staff in just general are long. Also, the mental health and wellness of our counseling teams, our psychiatrists, our nurses, just like any healthcare system. I don't think it's unique to law enforcement, but, we're doing a lot of work in that area, but, you know, there's clearly some cracks sometimes, and we're trying to shore that up.
Thank you for that. The next question is, accountability. I know that there was a law passed since there was this thing with, Mr. Floyd. Are you, asking the officers to be more accountable for each other's when they see an officer doing? I know you are doing that, but do you have a lot of that? A lot of people coming forward now that is the law, officers coming forward to report on and talk to provide more training in certain areas and getting into the system.
Yeah, and we have an expectation that someone will intervene. There's a failure to intervene, concern, and I think that's what you're addressing. If you see your partner or someone else doing something that they shouldn't be doing, now there's an expectation, and I do see that happen. We do have a high expectation as an organization that we hold each other accountable, and I think we're doing a good job in there.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fasano.
Thank you, Sheriff, for being here. I have a few questions that are more operational, but I would appreciate getting your views on them. One is the intercom systems in the jail. Of course, they're an important avenue for inmates to talk to sheriff's department personnel. My question is, are there any guidelines or ability to disable these intercom systems? And if they are there any guidelines on when that can be done and how it's documented?
Yes, and I do have a copy of our policy here that I can leave with you, but, yes, anytime, an intercom system has been disabled, muted, deputies are required to log that, and the reason for that happening. There are requirements that if someone's, pushing on their intercom button, you know, the deputies as soon as possible go and check on that individual. We have and I'll leave this, I don't have it. I don't have the page flag, but I do have all of the things that you're asking are required in our procedure policy.
But there is a requirement that there be, that a deputy actually physically respond.
Yes.
To the location and communication taking place. Another question is, concerning use of force. Are there any guidelines in terms of discouraging the use of head strikes? Particularly when other options are available. I'm wondering if center body mass or body strikes are encouraged over head strikes, which can often lead to concussions or brain injuries.
Yes, deputies are trained to take care of the situation and respond to the force in a way that's reasonable and that's necessary at the time. Sometimes the force changes, bodies, you know, getting in a fight is sometimes messy, people fall on the floor, things like that happen. Sometimes deputies have to do what they can to control the situation, but typically there aren't a lot of head strikes that are happening during those use of force incidents.
Okay, my last question is concerning situations that may involve a hostage taking place either in a public setting like a restaurant or in a private residence. Is there a policy to remove other individuals from the location to protect their safety?
That's something that we do always try to do, and you'll see that in some of the incidents that we've had over the last year, especially deputies respond to a scene. I know recently we had an incident where former boyfriend was in the home with a gun, threatening the family. We were able to remove the children and the girlfriend, and then safely negotiate with that individual when they're out. Sometimes we do everything we can to get people out of the house or rescue them. We've had deputies who've been able to get into the home and get people out while they work with the individual. That's of course optimal for us as well as the safety of the hostages and also the safety, frankly, of the individual that we're trying to take into custody.
Okay, and to just take that one step further, if the person's resisting or anyone is indicating they don't want to leave, can the deputies actually use force to escort them out?
Well, every situation's different. If someone is being physically restrained by someone in the house, is that kind of what you're talking about? Or that they're just refusing to come out?
Yeah, they don't want to leave.
They don't want to leave. You can't force anyone to leave their home.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Woods next.
Hello, Sharon. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
I'm a new member of the board, and one thing I didn't hear tonight was staffing levels. And I'm looking at how staffed they are at the detention facilities, and like most major law enforcement agencies across the country, are you finding it difficult in the recruitment phase? I just didn't hear if you're up to the staffing levels, if you're full, if you've got vacancies like most.
Yeah, so we've had really good luck recently. We graduated 43 detention staffies last week. We had 53 started a new academy on Monday. So that's 96 in a week. It does take a while to train people. We've got 50 more starting on the law enforcement academy in January. I plan to convert 100 law enforcement detention positions to law enforcement because they're easier to staff. Law enforcement deputies are easier to hire. More people are interested in those jobs than the detention positions, but I can put those law enforcement deputies working in the jail to begin their careers. So we believe we'll be fully staffed on the sworn side next year. We are then going to have to really focus on our professional staff positions. I think we're down 272 or something on that side of the house, which are everything from nurses, clinicians, booking clerks. We have 160 positions, some classifications, some prioritization. So, but we hope to be fully staffed next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bisson, I saw your hand raised. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to ask the sheriff a question yet would like to ask before I go back to Mr. Bisson? Okay, Mr. Bisson, and then I have some questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't address this the first time. I wrote it down, didn't ask. You said that the sheriff's department has the biggest mental health facility in the state. I'm wondering what happens to these folks who are in that facility and, in need of care when they leave? Is there a program to exit them gracefully?
Yeah, so so we have I'll kind of describe a couple of situations. So we'll have, say, the homeless individual that comes into our custody for a felony. We stabilize them while they're in our custody, and frequently we will give them a prescription for medications if they're on prescribed something while they're in our custody, and give them a supply, especially for medicated assisted treatment drugs, things like that. The problem we see though is they get back out on the street, they continue to be homeless and deteriorate, and then come back to us. We do have some luck with transitioning some people to community-based programs, and we hope to strengthen that, particularly if we're properly funded for the Prop 36 population. We think we can build those partnerships. Once we can get more housing and community-based care systems set up, we'll have a better chance. But it depends on how long they're in our custody, how much we can stabilize them, how interested they are in continuing treatment when they're released. So.
Thank you. I have a few questions.
Okay.
You mentioned some numbers and results. You feel like you've had some success with the random screenings that were introduced last year. Staff and contractors are included in those random screenings, correct?
Yes, everyone that's coming in on the day that we're doing screening.
And how are those results looking? Are you finding any issues with staff or contractors that are coming through the screenings?
Well, it's interesting. None of the screenings have resulted in finding drugs. It's other contraband things like, staff are celebrating a birthday, so they're bringing arsenic to cut cake, things like that, which they aren't allowed to have in the jail. So, and sometimes the contractors don't, but we haven't found drugs at all from any of the screenings. So we've actually about 5 in one month.
And are you may not know this off the top of your head, but
sure.
Generally speaking, about what percentage of staff are end up getting screened? Because again, it's random, so it's hard to know, on a daily basis how many there are.
Yeah, I don't know, but I will tell you that, for instance, we're doing screening at the Rock Mountain facility. Everyone at that facility will be screened that day that's on duty that day. And so as far as, I don't have the numbers. I would love, as I said, I would love to make it just standard for everyone every single time they come into our facilities. There's just no way to staff.
Thank you. Um, you mentioned the need for facility upgrades. We have a lot of aging infrastructure. I've been to every one of the detention facilities and I understand that. Are you? I'd appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Are you able to tell us what it would cost to bring all of our detention facilities up to a level that would provide better care?
We think it's in the range of about $1 billion.
About $1 billion and other parts of the state that are, is there any other part of the state, another region or county that is doing that type of improvement at their detention facilities?
The Imperial County Sheriff is trying a bond measure.
A bond
any jail for his county. Los Angeles County did approve several years ago, $3 billion to upgrade his jail and then pulled that funding. So he really needs a new central jail and some of his other facilities, but there's no plan in place to build those.
And was that a bond measure that was put on the ballot by the county or a citizen measure, or how did that get to the ballot?
Imperial County.
Mhm.
So they're in the process.
And LA, you know.
Oh, LA wasn't a bond measure.
Okay.
Yeah. Imperial County is hoping, I think, to put that on their ballot next year. They're still working through that process, but I think it'll get through the county.
Thank you. Thank you for providing information about medical care and medical staff. It's certainly something that we are talking about a lot and preparing for as the new jurisdiction begins.
Sure.
I know that the medical staff is a blend of sheriff or county employees, and then I believe there's 2 contractors. I'm specifically referring to the detention facilities.
Yeah.
I know that there are other contracts that are outside of the detention facilities. So it's county staff or sheriff's department staff. I believe it's NAF care and CHP, which is, I don't know that, but it stands for.
Yeah, correctional health.
Correctional providers or practice.
Pardon.
What's the breakdown? How many are county employees versus contract employees?
So, the contract employees or the contracts are only cover classifications that the county does not have, like doctors, psychiatrists, dentists. I think there's 23 different contracts. They also are doing our medicated assisted treatment and our prescription drug, handling the prescriptions. The nurses and I think I have 288 nurses, something like that, that are my medical staff. Those are all SCIU employees, but they're sheriff's employees. And then the contractors, I don't have a number of how many that they staff. We do contract for different things, and I don't have a number.
The nurses hand out the medication, or is it a different classification of medical provider?
So the normal med pass or medication pass during the day is a nurse and deputy.
Okay. And are deputies required to know medical staff policy or no? Because they are not technically medical providers.
No, there's always confusion about that. So deputies are responsible for security in the facility and security of all the staff and the people who are housed in our facilities. But the medical staff are the ones who have their policies. We do have some overlap, like we have a commander who's in charge of our medical program, the Detention Services Bureau, Jesse Jones. I think he's been here to speak to you before. So he is intimately familiar with most of our medical policies, but a lot of the line deputies probably are not.
Are the line deputies being asked to provide some level of medical care?
No. They would respond if there's a medical incident, like someone stops breathing, needs CPR. Deputies, of course, will respond and provide first aid.
So for example, on a medical pass, the deputies are really only being providing security for the nurses who are providing medication. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you. How much are deputies required to know about an IP's medical condition?
Well, I don't know that they're required to know the medical condition of everyone. They do have some knowledge of what's going on. I don't know exactly. Sorry, I haven't worked the line as a deputy in a long time, so I don't know what information they have access to.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, the reason I'm asking this question is because I thought I heard you say that the deputy, in your presentation, that the deputies were being asked to provide some level of mental health care. But then you're saying that they're not required to know or follow the medical,
No,
policy.
they don't provide.
They don't, so I misheard you. Okay, thank you. Dr. Brown, did you have
I
another?
just had one more question. Ma'am, have you thought about using technology as a force multiplier to help you with some of the challenges that they have in jails?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. We tested a biometric device about 2 years ago. It was really bulky. It was worn around the ankle and it only had a 12-hour battery life and has to be consensually worn by the individual. The technology has improved and we will be sort of more of an Apple Watch now. And we will be rolling that out at Las Vegas and at the downtown jail in the next few weeks. So as a pilot to sort of test that on some of our more at-risk individuals, and that will monitor heart rate and all of those different things. So that will help us. We have looked at RFID technology for tracking movement of individuals who are in our custody. We're looking at a lot of technology. The problem again with the infrastructure is we just spent $16 million on Wi-Fi upgrades, but the walls of the facility are cement, and so you have to use the existing spaces to run wires. We need to pull stuff out to put new broadband and things like that in. The facilities weren't built for the types of technology that we want to deploy, but we are looking all the time at different things. We see vendors constantly who are providing the latest, greatest. There's just not. It's an interesting industry because a lot of people haven't focused on doing more for this population, and so a lot of times my IT department are inventing things. They recently developed an app for the phone, so the deputies, as they're going around doing checks, will have instant access to that person's record that they're checking on. That will be expanding as we move along. So we are developing a lot of our own technology because there's just not a lot on the market.
And some of this technology would be like when somebody like needs emergency care, you can be able to see it when they need it immediately by their body and biometrics. Yeah.
Yeah, so the biometric technology should alert deputies or nursing staff, medical staff that someone's having cardiac arrest is a difficult one. If someone's in their cell in the middle of the night and has a heart attack, you won't see them until we do a cell check. So these devices theoretically alert us that someone's heart had stopped or that they're in medical distress, and we can go to that person immediately upon the incident. We're looking at that technology also for people who don't want to wear it on the person again. It has to be consensual. It's a medical device. So we're looking at installing readers and things like that actually in the ceiling of some of the cells. So that would be helpful for individuals who, they're going to be wearing it consensually, so we don't think they'll be turning it off and things like that. But some of the individuals in our custody will need a different type of monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Last question, his question about medical devices prompted me to remember one question I had. You mentioned that some or all, I don't know, how many IPs are using the Dexcom? I'm very familiar with the Dexcom device and how many people are using it?
I don't have that number.
Okay, okay. Is there a classification of people who are?
I think it's people who are diabetic or insulin.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so, so this kind of takes the guessing out of, who's gonna get insulin, things like that. So, it's fairly new, and I don't have those numbers, but we can certainly get those.
I was wondering, who's monitoring those glucose monitors, because typically a person who has one permanently, sorry, I picked up my phone, would monitor on a phone, for example. So who's monitoring if somebody has a
I don't know.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any of, Mr. Ware?
Just one last question. You mentioned that, just want to clarify, that you're in the process of developing your own technology to help a deputy monitor an inmate's health status, frankly. So you agree there's room for improvement, that they should have that information on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that, we're constantly envisioning where we can be and where we want to be with our jail system. And it takes money, it takes work, it takes ingenuity, it takes a lot of the things that we're envisioning are not on the market. And so we're trying to develop those, and we're really trying to build an airplane while we're flying it, right? So, yeah, the motivation is there. My entire team has been driven to do this the last 3 years. We're driven to continue. We just sent a group of people to the Convention for National Correctional Healthcare in Baltimore. They've just come back with a whole bunch of more ideas. So we're continually driving to improve. It's none of it's fast enough. It's not fast enough for us, and it's not fast enough for the community. It's not fast enough for you guys, but we're working hard.
Thank you. I think that has exhausted, I'm sorry. Mr. Moody, I'm sorry if I missed you. Apologize.
Sure, I was just curious about the activation of the intercom system and they was, is that log, date, time, location, cell number? In its name, is that logged in?
I don't. We can find that out for you.
Yeah, I was just curious if,
Yeah, I wish I knew, some of these are, my job is very different than what my job is doing, I'm sorry.
sure, yeah, because the follow-up question was, is it log, what the conversation was like, what the topic was, what the issue was, and what the response from the deputy was.
Oh, I don't think we have that level of, they're not recorded, as far as I know, and we don't log it for that extent.
And just for a follow-up on that, Lieutenant Jarjura recently provided the board with this information that there is no recording. However, it's a private company that you contract for some of the intercom systems, and they might be able to reach out to that company to keep track of just the time of the pressing of the button, and that's all they would have.
I just want to say again that there's been a lot of call for you to come to this meeting. And being that I've worked with you and your deputy over the years, I know the courage that exists. So I expect you to come to tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for answering our questions. And before I forget, I'm going to ask Amanda, could you remind me and maybe Brett to find the transcript or the part of the video where Mr. Jarjura provided that information so we can get it to Mr. Moody? I wanted to tell you now, so I did not. You did. Okay, Brett says he's got it, so okay, thank you. We will now move to the public comment portion for the sheriff. She's going to speak here, I believe, and Norris, how many people asked?
We have total 16. 16.
16. Okay, so it's a minute and 30 seconds.
Right, first we'll call Paloma Serna.
My name is Paloma Serna, the mother of Elisa Serna, who died November 11, 2019. You do not need any money. It is not the building that killed my daughter. It is your deputies. They were trained during the academy. Even a child would know when someone is in a medical distress. Those deputies, Lacey Lovisa and Tony Hall Bennett, they still work under you. Back at one time you had spoken and stated that Elisa deserved better to the media. But still under your watch, many people have died. So you are no different to Bill Gore. In 2019, you oversaw the Law Enforcement Service Bureau, including the homicide unit, which conducted internal investigation into in-custody deaths like Elisa. Under your oversight, no criminal charges.
Ms. Serna, I'm going to ask you to address your comments to us.
Well, under her oversight, no one has been charged or disciplined, resulting, despite all these medical neglect, where people are dying under her watch. Part of the command structure named in wrongful death lawsuits for systemic failures. Now she's a sheriff. She has promised reform. She pats herself too much on the back. It has impacted families, the community, advocates that made changes, not her. We deserve people to be held responsible. Because we know if the guy that killed my daughter, I would have been charged, tried, and convicted within the first year.
Thank you. Before the next speaker, I just want to remind people that public comment is to the board, so please address your comments to us, to me.
Thank you. Next, we have Yusuf Miller.
Before you start my time, Sunday will also gave me her time, so that would be 3 minutes. You know, I was having together, so coming back and forth.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And the statement that the jails are the largest mental health facility in the county is actually a shame. It's a shame because our county budget monies, where they should go to is where our heart is. And our heart should be in alternatives to incarceration, not incarceration. We should be more involved in decarceration than incarceration. Prop 36 is the problem. Prop 36 is bringing more people into this carceral system. Instead of trying to repair or build a new Vista detention center, they should just close and destroy Vista detention center, put more emphasis on decarceration and alternatives to incarceration, and that way we could have a population that could fit in our jails. But we're too involved in incarceration. We need to take the badge and the gun out of addiction, and the badge and the gun out of mental health. That way, we won't have such a large population in our jails. Now, back to the earlier part of it, when we saw what the sheriff showed us, the improvements that are going on. So I'm always happy for improvement because I want people to survive in custody. I want them to survive and come out to their families. I want them to survive at least to go their first day in court, at least that. Their first day in court, but far more to go back to their families. So I want to give a thanks. I want to thank the families behind me for pulling up and causing the state audit of San Diego County Jail and in custody deaths. That was the families who did that. That audit then came out and said that the sheriff's department, and of course this was before Kelly Martinez's time, but she was still in the department. The audit said that they need to improve medical, improve mental health, improve the intercoms, improve the video cameras, improve nursing staffing, and that the department was responsible for not preventing those deaths. We don't see any difference besides that. And these changes we see are the things that I mentioned, not from the innovation of the sheriff, in my opinion. It's because of the audit from coming up from the state, which we've been asking for years before the audit even started. Then we have from the families, I want to thank the families behind me again for getting past AB 268 into law, which requires a medical oversight of all the jails and a mental health oversight of all the jails on the state level at the BSCC, the Board of State and Community Corrections. The families behind me did that to look into those issues. And also, the families behind me supported SB and pushed all the way to the Capitol, SB 519, which required an in-custody death review officer for all in-custody deaths in the state. We've done that, and we asked the sheriff when she first took office to scan the deputies for drugs, and we got the same answers, 3 answers: no, no, and hell no. What happened? After that, we saw a deputy was broke into a drug lockbox, and we saw another deputy had drugs in his car, and then we started seeing change. So we want changes. Am I time?
Yes, thank you so much, please. Next, I will call Ashley.
You weren't here last time we spoke, but I did notice a couple times while you were speaking, you did state that the deputies are not trained medically. So my question is, if the deputies don't have that type of medical training, why is it that it's the deputies that are doing the walkthroughs, they're supposed to be done every 45 minutes to an hour. If they're not medically trained for that, these will be another going to get back fee. The deputies fail to do any checks at all for, we don't know the full time yet, but we know it was hours. So if they're not properly trained and not in medical sense, why are they the ones that are doing the checks to make sure that they're breathing? Another thing I know she talked about a lot is money. And what needs to go into the budget and how many more people are employed, and this is what we're doing. And like we see in most careers, a lot of us are short staffed. But if you can't get a handle on what you already have, how is hiring 60 or even 70 more employees gonna do anything? That's not addressing the policies and procedures that are put in place that already aren't followed. And as far as the mental health goes, that's not properly addressed either. I come from a family that's on residential care facilities for dual diagnosis of mental health for over 53 years, not one death.
Thank you, Ms. I will call David Settles.
Thank you, and just one more reminder to please address your comments to the board.
Yes. Hello, David Settles. Appreciate the information. Going back to on the other Matthew Settles, so during the introduction, I talked about how he came out of county mental hospital. He was delusional, so severely needed medical help. I don't understand how he's gonna be able to get that help at all if there's a psych unit and someone with, completely delusional can't get, goes from the general population. So he was assaulted and this has repeated, Ray Vogelman a few months later, same location at George Bailey. It's also assaulted mentally, had the, schizophrenia as well. And his mom, Leslie Crawford's online. So just, thank you. It's good to see that there's improvements, in work, but it really comes down to the accountability. Why, you don't really have answers why that happened. So whether that's going to change, just during this PowerPoint, that's, the accountability. So hopefully now we have the oversight, but we really need to see whether those changes are going to happen because they're needed because we keep seeing, we can't just point to budgets. If that's the reason, then it needs to be accountable. That needs to be brought up as an issue, and that's not happening. Getting the accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So I will call Milka.
Hi, my name is Ilka Weston. I think I bring it up every time I talk. Addiction is a disease. It is actually described as a disease, as is mental health. There's absolutely no reason that they should go anywhere else but to a hospital. Not any amount of hiring is going to help in our jails and institutions, seeing that it's all people dying that have addiction problems, mental health crisis, or dual diagnosis. This is why I keep fighting for a mental health hospital, not to be overrun by the sheriff, but by medical professionals. If my son ended up in jail and I had the money to bail him out, I wouldn't say, he's in jail if I knew he had a drinking problem. I would bail him out. I would get him the medical care, and then I'd fight what happened if he got arrested for something. And that's not the case with my son, but we have so many families that are mourning people. So many people dying. And so many lawsuits that it's going to block us from being able to do something to help. Now don't get me wrong, those families have a right to file those lawsuits. If they're involved in their families and they're involved with those people before they go in, they need the care. And we need to fight for that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly, for being here. And I gotta say, canine dogs at the detention center, they rock. They do.
Thank you. Next, I will call Chuck Rodriguez.
Chuck Rodriguez, again on the Saxon Rodriguez in custody death. I don't have much really to say. I didn't know she was gonna be here today. If you call your sergeant at arms and present them to me. Your sergeant at arms, your security sentry, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking me.
Do you have security?
There are sheriff's
Do you have a
deputies here.
sergeant at arms? Like for my citizen's arrest, if you have a deputy available.
If you'd like to continue your remarks to the board, you may, otherwise you can sit down and someone else will have an opportunity to speak.
Yes, I'd like your sergeant at arms present come forward, identify themselves with their badge number so I can make my arrest of Sheriff Kelly Martinez. Conspiracy. Obstruction.
Thank you. Who's our next speaker, guys?
Next, we have Joan Settles.
Mr. Rodriguez, please have a seat. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to speak and information. I'd still like to put forward, we're here. As far as I can see, Sheriff Martinez campaigned on transparency as an undersheriff, moving into the top sheriff position. She understood that transparency was what she ran on. And at this point, I feel that she's obviously not fulfilled that, campaign promise. I would urge you as a board to question her further on why that is and to push for the accountability we all deserve. My brother Matthew Settles passed in custody, as I mentioned before. He was in an altercation. He had 54 stitches. We as a family, 3 years after his death, still have no idea why that exactly happened, what happened, and where are those reports? Those are taxpayer funded reports, but for some reason, the transparency and accountability never happened. I would encourage you all to question why that is. Why is it that the families don't understand that? Also, I encourage you to look for more details in these nicely buffed out plans. My brother was under a court order conservatorship, and yet the sheriffs didn't claim not to know that. They let him make decisions that he shouldn't have been able to make. He was put in administrative segregation, which is counter to all the reports. So why is that? I would appreciate if this board asked a lot more specific questions about why these policies haven't been changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will call Deanna Serna.
I just want to say, we need to recall Kelly Martinez, and I'll give the rest of my time to Yusuf Miller.
Yusuf Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition. And as I was giving my last talk, I was saying that we asked Sheriff Martinez to scan all the deputies and the staff when she first took office. And like I said, the only kind of questions, answers we got from the sheriff department is no, no, and hell no. Briefly after that, a sheriff's deputy was arrested for breaking in a drug lockbox. Shortly after that, another deputy was arrested in the parking lot of the jail with drugs in his car. So then it took till 2024 for to finally do that scan, and now it's inadequate because it's random. It needs to be always and all the time. And I thank the families for asking for that, and the families for demanding that, and especially who took the lead on those kind of questions was the Wells for Saxon Rodriguez. I want to thank you for that. We see that we asked for a policy for the department to forbid deputies from belonging to extremist groups. We asked this of Sheriff Gore, we ask it now. Sheriff Gore said no. Why did Sheriff Gore say no? There's already a state legislation that says they should be have good character. We're looking for something here locally that says that the sheriff's department expects the deputies not to belong to those kinds of organizations. We have not seen it. And that letter says something to the community that we can have faith and trust. The highest bigotry in this county is anti-Black bigotry, and we see that when we see stop data in this county.
Thank you. Next, we will call Patricia Diarman.
Melly Martinez. My name is Patricia Diarman. I don't know if you remember my.
Please address your comments to me.
I will. I'm introducing myself.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, my brother was Christopher Diarman, who San Diego police killed. Your deputies did a terrible investigation following his murder. I want to know, are voluntary interviews with agreed upon questions appropriate in the San Diego Sheriff?
Please address the comments to.
These are questions.
No, this is public comment to the CLERB board. You can address them to me, I'm the chair, or to this board.
I thought we were asking a question.
No, that's public comment to the board, please. You can ask us questions, you can ask us things that we can follow up on.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to talk to her.
You talk to me and we'll start your time over again if you want to talk to the board. Go ahead and start your time over again, Nars. Thank you.
Sure, you've heard the story before. Are voluntary interviews with agreed upon questions appropriate in a San Diego sheriff conducted interview following a death? Why would detectives travel from San Marcos and Escondido to San Diego following the day of an OIS to review footage after SCPD murdered someone? Does San Diego Sheriff's Department find it to be a violation for a San Diego Police Department officer to shoot a victim with not department issued hollow point ammunition? Whether you consider it as a violation or not, I am asking why. Is it because they travel further, they explode in the body cavities, and they bring sooner death to the victim? Do you consider verbal statements when the victims say they are unable to follow commands a form of compliance? Is it appropriate to deploy a canine as a test for compliance on an unresponsive person 11 minutes after they have been shot at 28 times? Do you know how many seconds it takes for a human to be considered dead when their heart is not beating? Do you consider tourniquets an effective life-saving medical aid more so than AEDs and CPR after your victim's been shot? What happens to deputies who conduct incomplete, biased, and non-objective investigations after police department's murder?
Next week, we will call Dave Diarman.
My son Christopher Diarman was murdered by San Diego Police 20 January 2023, but the malfeasance can be shared equally with Sheriff's Department. As San Diego Sheriff's Department investigates San Diego, known as Blue on Blue, what could possibly prevent collusion, bias, and bona fide conflict of interest? Why were attorneys present following the murder of my son during the interview of the San Diego Police Department? Open-ended questions, leading answers with lawyers coaching their responses. Why did a plainclothes sheriff detective lie to me, interrogate me with a hidden microphone, only at the end of my interrogation to tell of my son's death? I used to be a staunch believer in law enforcement. I am no longer, and I am a 30-year naval veteran, former security officer, trained at Flexi.
Next, I will call the online requesters. First, I will start with Leslie Crawford.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Leslie Crawford for Raymond Vogelman. I would like to give my time to Joseph Miller, if I may.
Thank you.
Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. And Ms. Crawford's son, Raymond Vogelman, is a prime example of the buzzers and intercoms not working. And when he was in a fight in the jails, after he was set into his cell, people were calling, this man is hurt, and the intercom, bringing in intercoms, and the intercoms resulted in nothing. And this is why this man died. He died not getting proper care that was responsible for his death, in my opinion. And when we look into the audit, we see that those very things are the things that the audit complained about. Not having working intercoms, not having working video cameras, blind spots. So yes, now we have these body-worn cameras that are can be able to see. You can see what the deputy is doing as they're walking around. Thank you, family. Thank you for asking them to have more video cameras and more sight into these blind spots, which they nicknamed the Thunderdome, because that's where the fights and brutalizations were happening. What we see in the case of Raymond Vogelman and others that are not classified properly in mental health, where a person can be killed by another inmate, and that inmate says that I was just waiting to see how long it would take for them to get there before I could take his life. This is hard.
Thank you, Ms. I will call Darwin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Darwin Fishman, he, him, his, Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to share, because I didn't hear it from you, CLERB members, that Sheriff Martinez and the Sheriff's Department, this is not something that's happened in the last 2 years, the last election, a new sheriff coming in, but these issues been systemic for years. And Sheriff Martinez and many other people in the Sheriff's Department have been there. So it's also really important that the creation of the problems that you're identifying, you're discussing tonight, that you go to the source of it and that there's an open discussion. Put it another way, I've never heard in the Sheriff's Department presentation that when I was there 10 years ago, this is when the problem developed. This is when it was 15 years ago. I didn't say anything, or I did say something and I wasn't successful. And that's why we're here now. The other thing that's very disturbing that's missing from this discussion is so much of what was put in the PowerPoint presentation and given tonight from the sheriff is not of their own making. It's not their own ideas. It's because of lawsuits, and they don't give credit. It's literally over dead bodies. Families lost loved ones, do the lawsuits and force the changes. That's not a good way forward. And especially if you don't acknowledge that and give credit for the families and the lawsuits.
Thank you, next we will call Beverly.
Yes, I would like to give my minutes to Yusuf Miller, please.
Thank you.
Yusef Miller, North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California. We have a host of nearly 24 families that have died in custody in San Diego County. You're only seeing a fraction of them here today. A lot of them can't make it because they're workers. We see where families are coming together in this combined sense of pain and neglect from death from the sheriff's department. We have the families of Brandon Yates. Brandon Yates should not have died in custody. He should not have died the way he died, with his dehydration, which is not mentioned when we talk about his death. We talk about only things that are not as critical as a person not receiving water. Basic water, being able to hydrate themselves, and dying over a very short time. And when people die, we see that the sheriff's department is not held accountable even in the costs. This time though, when we lost the latest press conference that we had, the sheriff's department did agree to pay the $16 million for the wrongful death of that man. But what about all the other families? I believe, and we'll push for, that the sheriff's department should always be responsible for negligent deaths of the law enforcement, and not you and me, not the taxpayers, because I didn't neglect any of these families' loved ones to death. Why am I paying for it? Why are you paying for it?
Thank you. We have one comment to be read for the record from John Packard.
Every preventable death probably has more than one contributing cause. Please ask the sheriff to direct her staff to provide you a list of every action they have taken to prevent jail deaths connected with the specific causes of such deaths. If she says getting jails accredited will prevent jail deaths, ask her to show those exact connections. Accreditation itself may not be nearly enough.
Thank you, John. That concludes the comments for item number 5.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here for your presentation. We'll welcome you back anytime. So let us know, and happy to have you back. And we appreciate the time you took to take all of our questions and to listen to public comment tonight.
Of course, thank you all.
Great. We will move on to item number 6, the Executive Officer's Report. Mr. Polina.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brett Polina. I'm the Executive Officer of CLERB. I've got a few items to talk about with staff first. We are beginning our interviews very shortly for an outreach specialist and an analyst, and we hope to be set for both of those positions by the turn of the year. And I think it'd be a great addition. And I apologize for the noise on the construction as well, but I must say that they just started the construction for our new space as well. So I want them to keep working because we really need the space in our office. We are now up to 12 people and we have 6 desks. So we're a little cramped. So speaking about adding new employees and planning for more, we have a slight reorganization of CLERB staff. Congratulations to Lynn Sessler, who was promoted to Chief Deputy Investigations. And she will head the investigation side. And then Chief Deputy Hockbeck will continue to be the Chief Deputy of the administrative side. Chair Pintar, Special Investigator Salas and myself attended the 2025 NACOL conference in Minneapolis last week. It was just last week, and it always is a really great opportunity to meet with individuals that are in the same position as you across the country. On the very first day, we get to break out amongst the executives, the board members, the special investigators, so that we can just have conversations amongst ourselves and what issues that we are having independently. And I think it provides a great opportunity to not only get a chance to get best practices from other oversight bodies across the country, but it also gives you an opportunity to find someone up here that you can continue to contact throughout the year and continue that relationship. And that's been extremely helpful for me, especially with the number of changes we've all had over the last year and may continue to have through this next year as well. Next year's annual conference will be held in Louisville, Kentucky. I have meetings set up with the medical staff leadership from not only San Diego County here, just our own medical staff, but I'm also meeting with California Department of Corrections medical staff. They do all of the in-custody death investigations throughout the Department of Corrections, so state prisons. And then lastly, the liaisons in the Sheriff's Department have scheduled a meeting with me to go over with their Medical Services Division and their leadership there. And so that I can work on establishing standards of care that are used by each of the different providers, healthcare providers, that may be either county employees or contractors or a combination of those. We have a lot of research yet to do in that area to really determine what those standards of care are. And also we have to take into consideration staffing levels, which is something as a board we have not done in regards to deputies. So it's a whole nother situation that we will have to learn and get expert testimony on. So speaking of that, we are working with the Department of Purchasing and Contracting through the county to prepare a release to go out to request quotes for medical service experts, not just locally. It can expand beyond that, but they will turn around and provide us with quotes. We will be looking at multiple different avenues for information. It might be doctors, GPs, it might be psychiatry, it might be nursing, and there might be a difference between LPNs, RNs, and now, as we heard here today, CNN. And that includes dentists, radiologists, all of those different specialties that they also have in the county that when they treat the individual. So we're putting that out. We hope to have some contact, and again, I think we have a little bit of time before we start our first ones, but we'll be looking at getting multiple ones for each one, and so that'll be a new process for everybody. And as far as tonight, I just wanted to notify everyone starting December, we do put out copies of things that are attachments to our meetings that we hold today. And in the future, we are going to set up a QR code there so that we aren't finding that those printed copies are being used properly. And as part of the goal of the county on sustainability and on the environment, we are going to move towards a QR code. So there won't be documents, but if there are needed for a different reason, for example, you may not have the ability to use a QR code, please let us know at the beginning of the meeting and we'll get you helped out. We obviously spent time, we had a meet and greet with our new board members. We had 4 of them there in one day, and we have provided them with a lot of information that they had coming into today. We realized they're gonna have a lot of questions. We're gonna get them out to future detention site tours and potential ride-alongs if needed. And so speaking of those tours, we have 4 coming up in the near future. It would be the Central Jail, George Bailey, Vista, and Las Colinas. They are already aware, the new board members are aware, but if the current board members would like to attend any one of those, I would just ask you to reach out to us so that we can make sure we, again, don't have any quorum issues when we do the tours, so we would have to divide up the groups and that's a big thank you to DIS and each of the facility heads that really have to coordinate these on a regular basis. We seem to be doing them often, And they go out of their way to schedule those for us when it works for Bev. And so, and during those tours, as many of you can attest to, when you have a question, you get to ask it and they do their best to answer it right then and there. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to get them out. I have asked them to take us to some new areas that we haven't seen before, and maybe some of the more difficult parts of detention centers that we don't normally get to see. And so we're hoping we get to do that. We have about the same amount of open and new cases over the last month. We're about 130 investigations, but we have 22 cases for tonight's session. That is the end of my report.
22 cases.
22.
Thank you. We will move, any questions for the executive officer and the board?
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned you're in the process of coordinating meetings with various medical organizations to identify the standard of care for us, so we can know about, for example, we have some of our current people practices that are not acceptable. Is that what we're looking for? Is that the process?
Yeah, so as we review the cases and present you with the policies that go along with for each of the, say, for example, the detention policies might be different from the services of patrol people. Medical services has a policy as well, but it's based upon the specialty. So some obviously may cross over. However, we are dealing with multiple different levels of the medical care, and they may have national, state, local standards of care that may be different, even amongst the contractors as compared to the county employees. So there may be state or federal level, most of them are state. It's very rare, but Title 15, right, with the state, we know that there's going to be some of those included within that. But we want to collect all of them so that when we come back to you, after we've given an opportunity for our medical experts to do that, that they have the right policy sitting in front of them when they're reviewing those cases, so that they can come informed when they prepare a report for the board.
Just curious, in your time in Naples, and I'm sure you probably brought up the medical oversight to your colleagues there. I was just curious, what was their response?
Well, there's this was discussed a little bit at a news conference today as well. You know, California is really leading the way nationally. There's a few big cities out there that do civilian oversight, mostly of police. When we go there, we're one of the few that is a county civilian oversight over the sheriff's department. And obviously, the fact that we are the first ones to be able to have both deputies and medical services, people looked at us like we were, one, a little bit crazy, to try to juggle all those things, which so we know it's a really heavy burden that we're going to be taking on, and that we know we have to get right. But then you have the combination of AB 847 passing just before we went to NACO, which was a big win for commissions or boards across the state, not just San Diego, especially those agencies that might not have the relationship we have with our DIS, right? When we work and we send stuff to DIS and we ask for something, they provide it, which has been very fortunate. We do not have access to the IA files, which we now will. They're personnel files, but there are some commissions and boards across the state that don't even get those records at the beginning. And so AB 847 should help to open that up, because in order to review, say, for example, a deputy statement that was made in a police report, if you have an IA statement, you're going to need to get that other statement so that you can compare them. And so it really opens up for a lot of things. And then obviously the announcement of California looking into an officer of inspector general. Changes things considerably for clerk. I'm still at the very beginning of determining where this goes and how it could affect clerk and how we could collaborate with a potential OIG. And so the county, did I say state? I'm sorry. So there is still a lot of questions and not many answers that I can provide to you right now of what that is going to look like. And so I'm gonna be working hard because we only got 120 days from the meeting that was held on October 20, around there. So we're already down to about 100 days left to be able to report back. And there's gonna be multiple parties reporting back to the Board of Supervisors. I will get in there as much as I can because it does affect clerk and what we do versus what the officer inspector general will do. And so I will be very involved in that, but we've got a lot going on right now. And so there's a lot of questions for me too.
Just real quick, since you pointed out that this is a short fuse before this thing gets determined. Reading the concept of operations, the materials you provided for us, it sounds like this OIG would serve as a legal counsel with us. We have our own legal counsel. I see a huge conflict when you have multiple legal counsels advising us.
Well, then you're not alone and he's not alone because the county also lists the individual as special counsel, not as counsel, but as special counsel to the board of supervisors and to clerk. So I think there's questions there, which, as you can all imagine, that's why there was a request for one confidential response, because there's going to be legal issues with that. It's not, I don't believe it's the board of supervisors trying to hide anything, but I believe that there's going to be confidential information within that report. So obviously that's a question I have as well, and how that plays out, how that works with us. Maybe it's just special counsel outside to get access to our information so that we can properly share and work together so that the officer the inspector general isn't doing the same activities that we are.
Good, sounds like you're on top. Excellent.
I have a question.
Dr. Brown?
I
just want to remind everybody, we do need to follow Robert's Rule of Orders in this meeting, to comply with the Brown Act, so just give me a wave or something and I will make sure that I call on you and then use the mic. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Okay. Could you please explain 847 and look to a little bit more so people would know what that is, now that I'm saying they don't?
Sure. AB 847 was actually originally sponsored by a local assemblywoman, Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins, and the bill, which what it was is originally there was only a certain number of individuals or agencies that had access to personnel records. So, for example, the grand jury, the district attorney, there's individuals like that is written into state law that they have access. They don't have to request it. Oversight, civilian oversight was added to that list of groups that would have access to these records. I would say with one caveat, it ensures within AB 847 that the information that CLERB gets must remain confidential. There are severe penalties for disclosure of that information. And so obviously we will be very careful. We will probably have to have many discussions about how that process is going to look and when we want those records and when we don't want those records potentially. And so again, a lot of questions, maybe not as many answers on that one, but we're working on that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brett? Mr. Woods, did you have a question? Nope, okay. All right, thank you. Yes, a lot going on. I'll move on to the board chair's report. I was also going to mention the NACOL conference. Again, NACOL, the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, is the name of the organization. It's the National Organization for Civilian Oversight. Brett mentioned that the conference this year was in Minneapolis, and so it was appropriately titled Reckoning and Resilience in the Post-George Floyd Era. Minneapolis is currently under a state-imposed consent decree, which mandates reforms to prevent force and discriminatory policing. So in addition to civil rights attorneys that were involved with the formulation of the consent decree, we also got to hear from the Minneapolis police chief. And he talked a lot about how he's using the decree framework to improve policies and training. I participated in one full day dedicated to making civilian oversight boards operate better and do better work. I know that many people who come to our board meetings on a monthly basis, you are frustrated. I know many of you are hurt by your personal loss. I just wanted to say that when I was in this board discussion and talking about the number of investigators that we have available to us, the state legislation recently that's going to give us more access to medical records. We are in California a long way further, we have more progress in the oversight space than many other places. Several panels and workshops related to evolution of police reform and civilian oversight over time, building correctional oversight in the face of political pressure, conducting oversight over detention facilities and probation. There were two separate panels that I was able to participate in that were specific to in-custody oversight as well as probation. And there was also a very interesting session focused on de-escalation and in an in-custody setting, which was very specific to not all oversight boards have oversight over detention facilities, so that was specific to us. Part of that panel discussion was a police captain who developed a verbal de-escalation training specifically for when they were dealing with individuals with mental illness, which that was also very interesting to listen to that conversation. Brett and I both participated in a session on effective outreach strategies for oversight agencies, and that will be particularly relevant when we get our new outreach person hired. So we got some ideas, and I saw Brett taking a lot of notes. And finally, for me, a highlight was hearing the keynote address, which was Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who led the prosecution of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. Of particular interest from his speech to me was how he relied, and I think to everyone here, was how he relied on the testimony of the public bystanders who merely viewed themselves as good Samaritans when they were stopping to try and intervene, but they played a very pivotal role in the prosecution of that case. So I would encourage, I believe that was taped and it's online. If you go to the NACOL website and you want to see it, it was a very inspiring keynote address about why we do what we do, and that was sort of the genesis of a lot of this work. So I was glad to participate. I would encourage other board members to participate next year. I usually open it up for people who have not been there. This is my second time going, and I'm glad I went, but I'd be happy to give other people an opportunity to go. Any questions for me before we move on to the next item? Okay, very good. We have already taken care of board member queries for our liaisons for tonight. There is no new business. There is no unfinished business. And we will move on to board member comments. Does anyone have any comments for the good of the whole? Mr. Mendelson.
Two things. First of all, I really appreciate the fact that we got 4 new members and bring a depth of experience. I think we're going to be much more effective having a full house of board members. The second thing is, and I'm no way downplaying the impact that your public comments have on us in many of these cases. However, I repeatedly hear that this thing about using hollow point ammunition. In California, hollow point ammunition is actually legal. And the reason is it's designed to expand on impact. It reduces the possibility of overpenetration or around exiting and by thereby maximizing public safety. So I only point that out because there seems to be this feeling like somebody has committed a crime if they're in law enforcement using hollow point ammunition. My tentative research, and I'm not swearing by this, is that actually the the San Diego County Sheriff's Department also uses hollow point ammunition. I just want to point that out. I'm not qualified to say whether it's department issue or not. I can tell you from personal experience in other departments and other counties, it is department issue. I have no idea here. I just know that the fact that they're using hollow point ammunition does not appear to be illegal. So.
Okay, is there any other members of the board who have, Ms. Federico Montalban?
Thank you. I think today I just wanted to share that I was trying to think through like questions to ask the sheriff, and I think today was really challenging to think through how the department responds to like crises of mental health, the need to provide care for those who are incarcerated, because I think today I was feeling that maybe, well, not that maybe, I think that most of us, or at least I believe that incarceration is not working. And I'm not really sure what type of efforts the county can look towards, it's a court thing, mandate. I just didn't feel hopeful today about it. Just wanted to share that, that it was challenging to come up with questions. I do think that the department is making changes based on, what the experiencing, but I don't know if it's not.
Thank you for sharing it, and I understand why you feel that way. Anyone else have a comment? Okay, with that, we will adjourn our open session and ask council to lead us into closed session.
Yes, then John will chair. If they are recommending closed session according to government code section 54-957, discuss cases that are confidential. Under the Round Act, pursuant to code sections 832.5 to 832.7. That would be the recommendation.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Let's take a 10-minute break. Okay, 10-minute break, and then we'll